Hello and welcome everybody to today's webinar, where I'll be showcasing 5 supplier management activities you can automate with today's modern SRM platforms. As always, wherever you may be sat physically, I'm super happy you've chosen to be with me virtually. In fact, we've got people dialing in from all over the world. So here, where I'm situated in the UK, but also we've got the US, Germany, Sweden, France, Italy, South Africa, and many more, just to name a few. But before we dive into today's content, I thought we would start with a quick intro and some housekeeping. So for me, my name is Steve Middleton. I am the UK Growth Director here at Kodiak Hub. It's a pleasure to be hosting today's session. And for those of you that don't know, Kodiak Hub, we work with successful strategic buyers, procurement leaders all over the world that truly understand the power and impact of their role within an organization. Our platform simply enables them to form deeper buyer insights in the form of robust ratings, whilst automating many of the really boring operational and risk tasks that they have to do and that you have to do on a daily basis, something that we will clearly expand on, and it's very relevant to today's discussion. But first, let's dive into some housekeeping. I'm often asked at the beginning or during any webinar, can I have a copy of the slides? Well, I'm delighted to confirm that this session is all fully recorded. Everybody that's attending today and that's registered for the session, or if you're listening back now, you'll get access to that recording, which will of course include each of the slides. I'm expecting the session to last somewhere between 30 to 35 minutes. I want it to be really quick and powerful and packed full of impact and good content. But this does depend on the number of questions that you might have in the Q&A session, of which we will try and answer as many as we can. Should you lose connection at any point during today's session, please simply utilize the same link that you used to enter the webinar. And of course, you can refer back to the recording for any content that you might have missed. But most importantly, and the final point I'm going to make around housekeeping, I want to draw your eyes to the question tab in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. I'm keen to make sure that this session is of most value to each and every one of you. So please, should you have any questions regarding any of the content today or anything else related to the subject, then put it in the Q&A in the question area, and I'll be sure to address those during the end session, the Q&A session at the end of this webinar. If we run out of time, which we often do, and we don't get to all questions, I'll be sure to come back to you personally with a response. So now we know who I am, we know who we are as Kodiak Hub, and we've covered the housekeeping. Let's dive into today's agenda. During the next 30 minutes, my goal is to cover the following points. First, I'm going to look to set the scene. Starting with why is now the procurement window of opportunity, why the importance of this topic is growing and growing fast. I will then cover what is automation. I'm going to define it to make sure that we all understand how automation can really help us in our procurement as procurement professionals. And then we'll move into the core content for today's session. The 5 supplier management activities that you can automate with a modern SRM solution, such as Kodiak Hub. And then before we move into the Q&A session, you'll see here, I'll also provide a practical demonstration of how these 5 tips can help you and work in real life practice. Of course, I might also cover in some additional benefits within that as well. And then finally, of course, the Q&A session. So I want to start with this slide, which is, you are a legend. I want to start today's content by making sure you all recognize your self-worth and the critical role that we as procurement leaders play in today's world. Procurement is experiencing a meteoric rise in many organizations. Procurement is no longer just a function. Procurement is recognized as an important profession that we should all rightly take a seat on the board table. As procurement continues to take a more prominent place in the value chain, we can expect other functions, other leadership teams to lean on us in procurement to drive top-line value, increase efficiency, hence automation, and meet ambitious sustainability goals. This increased trust comes with increased responsibility, and a new status comes with new shifting priorities. And I pulled this information. In fact, I've taken these stats from the most recent edition of the Deloitte's Chief Procurement Officer Survey. For the second year running, reducing costs is no longer listed as the top priority, where it has sat in the previous 10 editions of this document. But this was replaced by an entirely new priority just a year ago called driving operational efficiency, which is very poignant for today's discussion. In fact, whilst an important function, cost reduction, has now shifted to number 4 on the list of priorities. This in itself demonstrates the shift we are experiencing. This also showcases how our responsibilities are changing and changing fast. We, as procurement professionals, have an opportunity to shape the future of our businesses. However, to achieve this, we need to celebrate change. In order to take the next step towards procurement excellence, many procurement leaders have been forced to reshape and revamp existing legacy processes. Please know that change is good. In fact, change is necessary to modernize the procurement function and truly fulfill your role in procurement and gain the respect we rightly deserve at that table. We, Kodiak Hub, have seen a significant growth in the SRM market over the last 2 years. In fact, we welcomed more new clients in the first 6 months of this year than we did for the entire of 2022. And that was a previous record year for Kodiak Hub. This, we believe, is as a result of companies shifting their focus from reducing costs to operational efficiency, to ESG and compliance. The previous untapped opportunity has now become a priority. And it is therefore no surprise, actually, that today's webinar is one of our most attended sessions. So before I showcase how our solution can help you to achieve greater levels of efficiency and drive automation, let's first define automation. And I'm going to do that very quickly in this next slide. As you can see on your screen here, and as defined by IBM, automation is a term for technology applications where human input is minimized. Furthermore, defined by Market Business News, ABN, automation is the use of electronics and computer-controlled devices to assume control of processes. The aim of automation is to boost efficiency and reliability. Automation offers humans, and in our case, procurement professionals, the opportunity to rid themselves of busy work that's bogged us down for years. Automation can also enable more robust processes by removing human error, and it can be an opportunity to consolidate data working together rather than siloed, and data that is updated automatically and in real time, supported by notifications and triggers. This means you miss nothing. This also means greater data accuracy as a result of automation. Furthermore, you are focused on the right suppliers at the right time, and you have the right data supporting the conversations and in the negotiations that you are leading with your suppliers. Most importantly, as a result of automation, you have the time to prioritize the important conversations that you need to take. So without further ado, let's now dive into and look at the 5 supplier management activities that you can automate with an SRM platform. Here, listed in front of you, are the 5 management activities that I will be showcasing today. These 5 activities have one common thread. These should not just be a one-time only. However, for many, due to lack of time and resource, they are reviewed once, or at best, or should I say once at best, and then forgotten, leaving you exposed and at potential risk. So the 5 areas I'm going to cover is including supplier onboarding, including all the data collections, questionnaires, documentation, etc. Supplier country risk review and why that's important. Sanctions, blacklists, politically exposed people, supply performance evaluation. I know that's something that many I speak to just simply don't have the time to review the performance of their suppliers. Well, that's bonkers. We should absolutely be measuring the performance of our suppliers, and automation is going to enable you to do that with very little effort. And number 5, contracts, documentation, compliance management, and how that can all be automated within an SRM platform. So let's dive in. Number 1, supplier onboarding, data collection, data checking. So let's say that you have chosen your supplier or your suppliers, or you have an existing list of suppliers. Now we need to onboard them and we need to manage them. This typically consists of various forms, PDFs, documentation collection, contracts, SLAs, code of conducts, etc., etc. The list goes on. The process might need to go through vast approval processes, be signed off by various business leads. Then you have endless spreadsheets that are almost always out of date and certainly very manual. This is both time-consuming and frustrating for anybody involved. A modern SRM will strip out all of this noise, and I'll be demonstrating this again at the end once I've covered off all the 5 points to showcase what this looks like in real life. But it will automate, but again, having that modern SRM will enable you to automate much of the supplier onboarding process and ongoing management. In fact, our clients, those using Kodiak Hub, achieve all of the above with just a few clicks of the mouse. Most importantly, the data compiled is into one source of truth, often, and certainly in the case of Kodiak Hub, allowing you to measure, compare, segment, categorize your suppliers quickly and easily. So it's not just about the automation, it's the capability that automation provides you. If today you are doing any of the above, anything listed, anything I've spoke about so far manually, you're wasting valuable resources and wasting time that could be better used elsewhere. You are also leaving yourselves exposed to human error and risk. I want to move into section 2, supplier country risk review. When managing global supply chains or even local supply chains, it's really important that we understand the environment in which that supplier is exposed to. This can impact how you assess the supplier during your onboarding, but also ongoing relationship management of your suppliers. By simply entering the location of a supplier, a modern SRM will provide you with a comprehensive overview of that country. And this should include things like human rights, labor rights, environmental performance, business ethics, anti-corruption, political stability, and the rule of the law, the ability to trade, economic stability, and again, the list can go on. To attempt to do this manually would be hugely inefficient and almost impossible to manage on an ongoing basis. This is another example of where an SRM solution can be super valuable to you, your team, and the business. Moving into section 3, sanctions, blacklists, politically exposed people. These are all things that we should consider. Adverse media, even media monitoring. Beyond the country-related risk, you need to also focus on local risk related to the business or organizations that you are looking to trade with. Again, this should include related businesses, not just the business you're trading with, but any related businesses, any sanctions, any politically exposed people, media screening. These checks, and this is important, These checks should not just happen when you first engage with a supplier. These should be ongoing, run consistently in the background. This is a perfect example of where automation can really help. It's no longer matters whether you are managing just 5 strategic suppliers. You can manage 50,000 or 100,000 suppliers, because the notifications that are linked to automation will bring critical information to you and ensure you're focused on the right areas at the right time. Supply performance. This is an area I'm particularly passionate about. And to give you an example, I want to just set the scene. Imagine you're an athlete and you never managed your performance. It just simply wouldn't happen. Could you ever imagine, the fastest running man in the world, Usain Bolt? I appreciate he's retired now, but you can imagine him in his prime saying, yeah, I feel like I went a bit quicker. Crazy. Of course he wouldn't say that. He would have systems in place to measure his performance from how quickly he responds to the starting gun, to the final stride, the final breath that he takes as he crosses over the finish line. Yet, many companies that I speak to and that we speak to collectively today do not measure the performance of their suppliers. Just because your suppliers were quick to respond and deliver 2 years ago does not mean they are quick today. Yet we don't know because we're simply not able to measure it. We don't have the time. Again, this is where a modern SRM solution is going to help you. The performance can easily be measured. You can combine hard data. Maybe you're capturing that from your existing tech stack, your ERP solution, etc., as well as experience data captured from your internal stakeholders, people in your team working with that supplier, as well as any physical audits that you might be carrying out. And that's just to get you started. This is no additional effort, just a systematic way to capture, measure, and record that data over time. This, combined with notifications, letting you know when performance increases or decreases, can be a game changer. It also helps you to keep your suppliers on their toes. What gets measured gets improved. What gets measured consistently gets improved exponentially. If your suppliers are aware that they're being measured, it helps them to improve their performance. And number 5, the final area that I want to look at for today, the contract documentation management. We should not be asking our suppliers for PDFs or downloading or saving documents in today's world. This is how documentation gets lost or missaved. It stays on local hard drives rather than in share files. We're using incorrect digits or wrong file names. Furthermore, managing expiry dates can quickly become an impossible challenge. And you're leaving yourself at risk of a compliance risk if there's, again, a really important document that's no longer valid or out of date. A modern SRM will enable your suppliers to, first of all, load their own documents, certificates, etc., directly into that SRM solution, so you have access to them immediately. Not only that, they enter things like expiry dates. And in some cases, the solution can even scan the document to ensure it is, in fact, the correct document. The expiry date does match that of what they've provided. And again, everything is valid. Beyond this, the solution will also auto-save the document to the correct supplier in the correct folder under the correct name, and it will notify you and or the supplier when a document is due to expire. Even chase that update for you if that's set up. This eliminates the risk of expired documents with little or no effort from you or your team. So, I hope this has been useful. These are my top 5 tips for driving automation using a modern SRM. This is only scratching the surface. And like I say, I've really focused on the areas that we should be measuring consistently. We should be monitoring consistently because that's where automation can drive the greatest impact. But there is so much more that is possible. However, before we close out this session and we go into the Q&A, I'd like to show you now, just spend a couple of minutes to show you this in practice. And to do that, I'm going to move now into into our platform. Okay, you should all now be able to see in front of you our platform, the Kodiak Hub platform, and welcome to the solution. I'm going to cover this off really quickly, and for any of you that would like to understand a little bit more about our solution, I'll be providing you a link in a moment so we can schedule a call. But ultimately, one of the things I talked about is that global view of your suppliers and that country risk. Well, the immediate thing that we showcase on our solution when you log in is exactly that. You get to see where all your suppliers are located. You can see that with the dots here, and as you expand in, you'll also see as I scroll around that the map changes color. That's based on the macro risk rating of that particular country. And why is that valuable? Well, let's say, for example, you have a supplier in Tunisia. Well, it might be quite important to understand that they have an economic rating of CCC+, which ultimately means this country is going bust. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't trade with Tunisia. We absolutely should, but it might be worthwhile adding some additional questions in relative to the economic rating of that supplier to make sure we're not leaving ourselves exposed for that type of risk. Beyond that, you can also, again, filter through your suppliers through various fields, whether it's just your strategic suppliers, or maybe you're looking at suppliers that are in manufacturing, or like I'm going to do now, search for a specific supplier. And it will come up on the dot here. And it's from here that we dive into what we call the supplier scorecard. This is that one statement of truth. This is all your supplier data in one view. And this is what is driven by all these tasks, these automated tasks that are ongoing in the background. And again, looking at the 5 things that I mentioned during today's session, one of them was during the onboarding process. So through our solution, you can very quickly send an assessment out to your supplier. Rather than that being a PDF document, this is an automated assessment that will simply go out. The supplier completes it, and as they're completing it, it's updating all the properties that you have on the supplier here on the right-hand side, which will be integrated typically with your ERP solution as well. So make sure that all the data you have is filed correctly. You might be looking at their sustainable practices. You'll see that this doesn't have a great score. So Microsoft, in this example, this is a demo account. This isn't real data. They don't have a great score when it comes to sustainable practices. So why is that? And again, you'll see there are 14 areas that we're recommending that you measure relative to sustainable practices. So again, as they're responding to the questions, they're building a score. Because again, what you can also start to building is a rating methodology. Sits at the core of our solution, because when there's ratings, you can tie typifications to it, which are notifications to let you know when things change, when they go up or down. That's another benefit of automation. But from here as well, you can clearly see areas which are scoring lower. So you can dive into that area and you can see how they've responded to certain questions. For example, here, they're not accepting your code of conduct. That'll be a reason for why this is much lower. And naturally, you can engage in that conversation with the supplier. Importantly, you haven't had to review an entire assessment. All you're doing is all this will do is highlight the areas which are of most relevance, where there's any potential risk to you. Again, the power of automation. I talked about within the solution measuring performance. And you'll see in the center here, there is a performance tab or donut or pillar of health. Call it whatever you like. We've heard lots of things. But here you can see they've got an overall performance score of 83%. But let's look at how they're performing. Are there any standout areas where they're doing particularly well, or any areas which are starting to fade? It's also important to see how things progress over time. So you can see that here as well. It's a really powerful way. And again, when we talk about performance, this is the combination of data you may be getting directly from your supplier, through internal stakeholders, through hard data you're capturing within your existing ERP solution. Again, all automatically processed within the SRM to provide one very clear picture on the supplier. And by the way, what you have here, just to complete this, you've got your country risk rating on the left-hand side, you've got your performance rating, you've got their sustainable practice rating. Those 3 things will drive to that overall global rating here, and you're in full control of the weightings depending on what's most important to you. The other nice thing about an SRM platform is everything gets documented. Again, you're no longer shopping. So if you want to see an assessment or an evaluation or an audit that was carried out 3 years ago with that supplier, you'll be able to find it listed in this section here. You've also got within here, your document management. Again, I talked to you before. So again, in the part of that onboarding assessment, you've asked for an ISO 9001. They say, yes, we have one. They upload it, they put the expiry date. It will immediately tag into that supplier scorecard. And again, with the power of automation, because we have the expiry date, we can build in notifications, which will let you know, or the supplier know, or both, that that document is due to expire. Can we have the updated version? The only time that becomes a task is when either that document expires or they don't respond. So again, you can build those typifications in. We also talked about sanctions. Again, you'll see here, Safe Source Premium. This is where we're looking at things like linked companies. We're looking at any linked individuals that might have any, that might be politically exposed. These are all powered links. So again, you can see the source of that data. You can see any sanctions that have been imposed, et cetera, et cetera. That's again, super, super powerful. And actually one of the key things here is about convenience. You know, often our clients talk about scattered data, the fact that they've got all this information coming in from various sources. Now you can have everything in one place, and including, and you'll see this a little bit on the right-hand side, the ability to integrate into existing solutions that you might have in place. So again, any existing solutions you have, we can pull that data in and automate it to make sure that, again, everything stays relevant and true. Now, I know I've covered that off very quickly, and I really now want to focus on the final section of today, which is the Q&A session. But before I do that, I would like, if I may, just to open up a quick poll to understand how you're managing your suppliers today. So I'm going to enlist this poll now. I'm going to do that. Okay, so if you should, all in front of you now, there should be a poll. If I could ask you just to select any one of those which is relevant to you today, and that will be really helpful to us to understand, because we know many of you might still be trapped in Excel, Word, SharePoint, email, etc. Some of you might have a dedicated SRM solution like Kodiak Hub. Maybe you've got your own homegrown solution, or maybe it's a legacy software like SAP, Ariba, Coupa, Jagger, etc., or one of the types. Okay. So I think that poll is out. Okay, and thank you to those that have completed that. Okay, I'm going to now, and one final thing that I'm also going to put on your screen, because like I say, I want to make sure that this session is of most value to each of them. Thank you, by the way. We've got a mountain of questions that we're going to go through in a moment, but I also want to put on the screen here for you the opportunity to book a call if you'd like to know more about Kodiak Hub, or if you have any specific questions relative to what we're doing. I'm going to put a link in. Okay, 1 second. Just doing this now. Put a link in there for you. Okay, so that's on your screen. So just by clicking that, you could get access directly to my diary, and it'll be my pleasure to work with you. Okay, so let's dive into the questions. I'm going to do this now. Okay, so we've got lots of questions here. I'm just going to go onto a slightly bigger screen so I can read some of these. Okay. Okay, looks like my screen's been frozen through a lot of this, so apologies for that for anyone that's seen a frozen screen. Okay, you're looking at single suppliers. Can you visualize your supply chains beyond single supplier? Means add a tier supplier. Yes, absolutely, Nicola. Obviously, what I've tried to do today is keep the session really light and at a high level. I'd welcome the opportunity to meet with you and showcase how this can work with multiple suppliers over multiple tiers within your supply chain, and of course go into a little bit more detail. I'm going to go into this 1 second, bear with me. Okay, I've also got Jonathan Wild here. Can your solution send out automated reminders to suppliers? Send out automated periodic assessments? Yes, absolutely. Again, this is where an SRM solution will be incredibly powerful. You can, of course, add in any number of, again, if you've got an assessment that needs to go out every week, every month, every quarter, twice yearly, you can create that. So it does that automatically, and naturally as they respond, it will automatically update those scorecards. So you're always looking at relevant data. And that you can also do that with reminders. So again, you can build in notifications and reminders. So for example, if you've sent an assessment out and they haven't completed it, you can build in a series of reminders to that supplier. So again, you're not doing the chasing. Again, a huge part of this is about removing the manual effort that you have to go through when completing this. Elizabeth, we've got time for 3 more. So I'm going to just do 3 more questions and then we'll move on. And anybody else, and I can see I've got about another 40 questions here that unfortunately I'm not going to get round to. But Elizabeth Booth has asked, we have very strict acceptance criteria in place for onboarding new suppliers. Can you adapt your solution to support our processes? Yes. Put simply, Elizabeth, we believe in creating a structure and framework, but the ability to be flexible with it. So one of the things that we offer for our customers is we would sit down with you during the onboarding process, and in fact, the fact find before you become a client, to understand specifically what your needs are, so we can make sure that the platform supports your existing processes, maybe with some improvements, rather than changing. Sam Mengavine has asked, will your solution deliver automated reports? Yes, of course. If the data is housed within our solution, whether that's being pulled through from third parties, whether it's data you're collecting from your suppliers, or even directly from internal stakeholders, as long as that data is being housed, then you can you'll be able to deliver the reports and create reports that will be automated for you. This is from somebody anonymous, and I've got 2 more that I'll respond to. How much time can be saved utilizing your solution? Great question. Obviously, the whole reason why automation is so attractive, as I mentioned before, is because it's a great opportunity to minimize workload and achieve more with less. In answer to this question, it all depends on what you've got in today, and it all depends on your level of commitment. But typically, I mean, we've got case studies where we've saved people months of work on individual projects. So it's quite often that we're saving 2, 3, 4 people's roles through automation. That's not that we're replacing jobs, it's replacing the need to add additional people into your team. So it means as a procurement organization, you can achieve more within the team that you have already in place. But again, if this is you, I know it was anonymous that shared that question, but if this question came from you, then I would love the opportunity to speak with you to understand more about what you've got in place, and I can give you a greater indication of what those time savings might look like. And then the final question, I'm going to smile when I say this, but Stephen Jenks has asked, how much is your solution? Well, Stephen, I hope this is because you'd like to purchase it. And if that's the case, then please let me know. But no, it's I'd love to give you a straightforward answer. But as you can imagine, this our solution is modular, which means that you can pick and choose the modules which are of most value to you, Stephen. So I would welcome the opportunity to have a conversation with you, understand which modules are most valuable, and then I can give you an indication of what that pricing will look like. Well, I hope that this session has been useful. We've just ran a couple of minutes over the half hour that I promised, so I wanted to keep it down. I have got a lot of questions that I haven't yet been able to respond to, so apologies to that. And I understand as well, when I did the demonstration, that you only saw the map, you didn't actually see the scorecards. So I'd encourage you, please, to book that call, and I'll be happy to take you through that individually and have a more in-depth conversation with you. But like I say, thank you very much, all of you, for your time and for your support on today's call and for all your questions. For those of you I haven't got round to, I will be coming back to you and responding to those questions. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye now.